All right, this is your third and final first week of content here, and we take a look at a moment in history that has changes all the way through, even with right now into the 21st century. We're talking about the interesting, sad, and challenging topic of imperialism. All right, so we'll start to break this thing down for you. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to the actual presentation. Be all set here in a bit. All right, so this part of the video, feel free to pause the video. I want you to kind of do a little self-assessment for yourself. There are 8 questions, and pause it here. Try to answer to the best of your knowledge. Just say it out loud, it's fine. You use your notes, and I will give you the answers like right now. So pause it, take the self-assessment here, and then feel free to press play in the video again as I give you the answers for like a self-check-in here. Okay. So 1, what 3 areas did the reformers in Russia want to make changes to? They wanted to change absolute rule. They wanted to embrace the economic backwardness, so change that. And they also wanted to deal with some of the social injustice of Russia. 2, what did lords, czars, why did lords or czars resist a change? The answer is because whenever there was change, they would lose power. They didn't want to lose the power themselves, so that's why they're always resistant. 3, why did Russia want a warm water port? And the answer is it would be access for shipping. They could import, they could export goods because all of Russia's water ports froze over. 4, what empire did the Russians think they could take the warm water port from? It's the crumbling of an empire. 5, what 2 countries did want to block Russia from getting warm water ports? That would be the 2 superpowers of England, or Britain, and France. 6, what was the name of the war over the warm water port? And that is the highly influential Crimean War. 7, despite the embarrassing loss, who wanted to embrace change but then resisted it? And that would be the lords, the various czars of Russia, right? The czars. 8, what happened to reformers who still wanted change? Possible outcomes: you could be jailed, you could be executed, you could be sent to Siberia, or you can even say censored as well. So those are your answers for number 8. All right. Hopefully this assessment went well. Just checking your notes. All right, so let's talk about imperialism now. Our goal is to bring you to talk about the idea of European imperialism in Africa and the factors that really caused it. And as we do this little lecture here, you're going to see, as a historian, I always wonder, like, why were the Europeans able to go into other parts of the world and basically take it over? They go into Asia, they go into India, they'll go into Africa. I mean, they just conquered everyone, and it was really good for them. The people that they conquered, there's disastrous results of history moving forward. So we'll look at the factors that allowed the Europeans to conquer so much of the world in this time frame. All right. So what is imperialism? Let's get the definition first. It's a domination of one country of their political belief system. You basically have your own values put in. You take over and have your system of economics. You bring your own economic values like capitalism in versus whatever system was there before. And you just, whatever culture was there before, you destroy it. You have your system of culture implemented in the country or region. So that's what it is. It's a military conquest of an area for economic gain. And once they take it, they enforce their political system, their economic system, and their cultural values into the region. And when this is happening, it's roughly 1880 to about 1910. 1910 is the end of it because that's when really you start to see the eventual outbreak of World War I. So about 30 years, the Europeans are going all over the world and they're just conquering everything. So next year, you'll learn that America also engaged in imperialism as well. Right? We went all over the world. It's kind of a nasty view of Uncle Sam, but these are all the different spots where the United States has a military base because it had some geopolitical power. All right. I oftentimes think of the game of the risk. If you've played the game of risk before, that's where you just try to conquer the world for your country. That is what these Europeans are trying to do. They're trying to conquer the world and expand and create vast empires. It's kind of like a bragging thing, right? But that's imperialism. You go in, your military might, you take over, you install your political, economic, or cultural values in the region, and you control the region because you're forging an empire. All right. So we talk about Western nations. The focus of this, it's going to be on Europe. All right, so Europe is considered a Western nation, and the United States is also considered a Western nation as well. America will have a lot of influence in the Caribbean, in South America, in Hawaii, in the Philippines. So This is one artist's view of what America does to South America. Uh, Not exactly the positive of the United States there. All right, there are many viewpoints. So one thing you see here is you see the natives, the indigenous people, and Uncle Sam here is riding on the back of the indigenous person. This one here is supposed to be a British leader. You can tell from the pork chop sideburns is a Brit. And this is a German, and they're riding on the backs of these people. So it's kind of this whole idea of who is subservient to their masters. And the Europeans and the Americans will have vast victories in this time frame. All right. So here's what they call the white man's burden. We'll talk more about this. One thing you start to see as Europeans and Americans go into different areas, they install their cultural values. And one thing you see here is an American president, Teddy Roosevelt, taking at this time what they viewed as the indigenous people, and they made them look almost like savages. And they're bringing them to school to learn American Western values. And that is part of the battle of imperialism. Looking back, it's like, whose values are the right values? And at this point in history, the Europeans and the Americans thought that our values were the correct values to teach people, not their indigenous ways. So it's controversial even to this day. So let's take a look at the nations that engage in imperialism. One, got Great Britain. It carves out a vast empire. You've got the good old French, okay? You've got people in Belgium, all right? And you've got Germany, and then there's the anomaly here. You got Japan. Now, what's unique about Japan is it's not European, but they will carve out a pretty impressive empire. We'll get to that in a few days. But these are the nations that are engaging in the Western Hemisphere, minus Japan, right? So here's a map of the British Empire. At one point, they said the sun never set on the British Empire because as the globe turned, there was always a spot somewhere on the map of the world where the Brits had control. All right, I mean, if you look over here, we were part of the British Empire. The Canadians were part of the British Empire. They've been ever, the Falkland Islands, all the way through Africa here. And the reason why they had this, they built a railroad system that went all the way from here, all the way to the southern tip of Africa. India. Australia was basically formed. There were so many prisoners in the British Empire. They needed a place to put these prisoners, and they just shipped them off to Australia and said, here's your prison. Out of that, prisoners, the Australians were able to build their own country, but they're basically dropped off people, prisoners of the British Empire. So go figure. So imperialism, it's going to have disastrous and long-term impacts for multiple areas of the world, but we're looking at Africa here. All right, so here, nearly all of Africa was under control of European nations by the dawn of the 20th century, and a lot of the languages, these people in Africa can speak almost fluent English, French, or German, or even Portuguese, because when these Europeans came in and they took control of these areas, they taught them their language. So these African people, these African kingdoms, they still kept their own language, but they're also taught in these European schools the European language. And you see Africa, almost all of it, by 1914 is owned as a colony of Europe to the north of it. There's only 2 areas that were not taken over, and the only 2 areas that were not taken over are Ethiopia and Liberia, because Ethiopia and Liberia had embraced Christianity. And since they had the correct religion, they were not deemed worthy of being taken over because they had the right religion. Anything else, the Europeans just took it all. Right? So, some factors that allowed the Europeans to do this. So the question is, you had it last, I kind of talked about it last time, was like, why didn't the Inca or the Aztecs take over the Europeans? Why didn't the people in North America take over the Europeans? Let's look at that. The Industrial Revolution is one of the biggest factors that really just booms Europe. What it's doing is it's making its economy strong, but at the same time, it's also increasing the demand for natural resources. The Europeans need these different goods. They needed rubber for the production of goods. Rubber isn't naturally found in Europe, so they had to go to Africa to get it. So they're looking at Africa to get rubber. They also realized there's this need for petroleum, of kerosene, and that's not found in Europe naturally. So that's why they're going to go to the Middle East and conquer large portions of the Middle East. And they also need palm oil. as machinery parts, as you create friction, that's when your machines break down, and they need palm oil to put on machine parts to reduce the friction and the heat. You don't find palm oil in Europe, so they've got to go to areas where you have a tropical climates. And so that's what's driving it. The Europeans, in order to keep the Industrial Revolution going, they need these goods that are outside of Europe, and that's why they're going there. They're aware of them, and they're like, you know, it'd be easier to just take these areas over to fuel our Industrial Revolution. So rubber, petroleum, palm oil needs are part of the reasons why the Europeans are going to these spots and they want to take them over. And also there's new markets. So as the Europeans start this year, the Industrial Revolution, they start focusing on, can we sell goods to China? Can we sell goods in Japan? Can we sell goods in South Africa? And the more goods they sell, the more their economies are booming. So there's new markets that will emerge around the world, and it'll make the businesses even more profit. And that's also a factor spurring this imperialism. And Europeans saw that most of the natural resources were, this chance for extreme wealth would be found in Africa, which was weak. And it would also be found in Asia, which is also a declining power. So the Europeans have the Industrial Revolution. They have a need for these different supplies. They have a need to expand their business. And the areas that they're looking are weak and destabilized. It's a golden opportunity for invasion. So, and when they get there, there's going to be conflict. Human beings do not like to give up their power. They don't like to give up their culture. They don't like to give up their values. And whenever you have someone coming into an area that wants to take over the area, you're going to have a conflict if you can't solve it diplomatically. So part of the reasons when the Europeans arrive, they're bringing things like this, the Gatling gun. And some of the early groups they're fighting, they have nothing more than wicker shields and spears. Spear versus machine gun, the machine gun's always going to win. Right? So in times of military conflict, in all these scenarios, they're going to move to a military conflict. The Americans, the Europeans are using their superior weapons and technology against inferior technology, and they're just going to decimate these weak areas. The repeating rifle, the ability for you to fire a rifle, load it back, and fire again, and fire again, and fire again, versus someone firing a bow and arrow at you, the rifle's going to win every time. The machine gun is developed. The Maxim gun gets developed as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Machine gun versus spear, it's a machine gun. And warships, the Europeans are going to sail up and down the rivers of Africa and Asia, and they'll just lay siege to anything, even deep inside the continent. All right, nothing was spared in their assault as they started to divide up Africa and Asia. And one last reason, beyond the military reasons, it's look at me, look how great I am. These empires wanted to create vast empires as a way to say, we're the best. There's national prestige. The French want to be like, oh, we're the best. And the Brits, with their cup of tea, want to say they're the best. There's a competition to say, look at me, I'm the best. So that's a reason as well. All right, this is an interesting one here. This is Cecil Rhodes, a primary source. From our primary source, this is what he actually said in time for him to study. He said, I would like to paint the map British red of all these stars, these vast worlds that remain out of reach. If I could, I would take over other planets. So they are looking at the moon, they're looking at Mars, and they're like, maybe someday we'll get that too. They don't even know. They don't know the possibilities of that. But they're looking at going beyond just the Earth for their conquest. And Cecil Rhodes is really the guy. You see him standing over the continent of Africa here, and it's this telegram wire he's going to spread all the way from South Africa all the way to the northern province of Egypt, which is under British control. Just crazy. You see this one here is England, almost looks like an octopus, and it's grabbing different lands. Canada, Jamaica, Egypt, all right, Malta. This one down here, this thing keeps getting in the way, but you're just grabbing all the land. India. All right, so last slide, an important one. Let's take a look at this. There are 4 factors that really drive this imperialism amongst the Europeans. One is nationalism. This is extreme love for your country. And there's nothing wrong with that. We call that patriotism sometimes, but nationalism is where you think you're you love your country, and you're willing to do anything to advance it. It's nationalism. We're the best. The best example in history, or really the most blind ambition of that, is what happens in the future of this country, of world history. The Nazis. We think Nazi Germany is the best, and people are willing to do sometimes just dastardly things in the name of nationalism to try to prove your country's the best. So nationalism, you love your country and you think your country's the best and you're willing to do whatever you can for your country. It's extreme patriotism, sometimes often blind patriotism or nationalism. Second thing we take a look at is social Darwinism. Now, in order to understand social Darwinism, we have to understand who Darwin was. Darwin was the man that first proposed the idea of evolution, that over time, humans are the result of evolution from different, just evolutionary states, from the monkey to man. And at this point in history, the Europeans believe this thing called social Darwinism. There's a belief that certain cultures, aka the Europeans, the Brits, the French, the Germans, that they were evolving at a faster rate than the uncivilized areas, the Africans, the Asians, the Central Americans. It's this racist idea at the time, social Darwinism. The Europeans, the Americans thought we were just evolving at a faster rate. We had cultural superiority because of our faster evolution over these less civilized people who had spears and weaker. So that is social Darwinism, right? A third thing, not necessarily a bad thing, there's Christian missionaries. Europeans predominantly practice Christianity for the most part, and they are trying to bring their religious beliefs to these other areas of faith. So they're trying to get them to be saved, to bring the message of Christ to these different areas. And that's why they're going too. So we think we're the best. We think we're evolving at a faster evolutionary rate, but we also want to bring our religion too. That's why in Africa, they conquer all of Africa, except Liberia and Ethiopia, because they're already Christians, right? And then there's this big push for Christian missionaries to go into Asia as well, to Japan, into China. So religion is important too. And the last thing is going to be, I want to differentiate between this one, social Darwinism, and the white man's burden, okay? White man's burden is the idea that Europeans and Americans have evolved at a faster rate. So just like social Darwinism, we're better, we're evolving faster, we're smarter, we're wiser, we're more advanced than you are. But, that's a critical word, but, they have a sense of duty to help out the backwards people. Like, okay, we are better, but we're going to help you learn our ways so you can be like us. So they're trying to teach their culture, their religion, their school, their education system, their military system to these backwards people. So to differentiate between the two here, social Darwinism and white man's burden almost exactly the same. The Europeans and Americans think they're at a faster rate of evolution, that they're just better than everyone else. But with white man's burden, there's also a sense of, okay, we're better, but we're going to help you out. We'll teach you our ways. So those are the four factors driving imperialism. In the next lecture, we'll start to look at some specific spots where these invasions occur. But that's your lecture, okay? Look through your notes. You're going to have a quiz over the 3 different sections. You're going to have a quiz over the creation of Germany, Russian history, and now the dawn of imperialism. All right, it's your first week. Different outfit next time. All right. Best of luck. Oh, let me turn this thing off. I forgot I stopped presenting. Oh, that's it. Bye.